for the December 4th St. Croix EMS Commission. What was that, Tim?
Easy for you to say.
Easy for me to say, right. Everybody get a chance to take a look at the minutes?
Yes.
Yeah, I just have one question. In the discussion possible actions on 2019 budget, down halfway down where the chief's position, it says in budgeted. Should it be is budgeted, perhaps?
Yep.
Okay.
Good catch.
Well, it's not much. It's just it's like those tend to jump on the page at it for some reason. So, it's like, oh. Rather than that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I'll second it.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Financial report. Good morning, Brenda.
Good morning.
Morning.
You received in your packet the financial report for October. I wasn't going to go into it in too much detail unless you had certain questions. But in October, you can see that there were 178 calls billed out compared to 144 calls billed out last year. As we talked after the third quarter, that increased call volume is now having a positive effect on our cash. 43 transfers were taken in October, and the staffing, 87% of the shifts were covered during the most recent payroll in November. So I just looked at the most recent payroll for that, but 87% of the shifts were covered.
Great. And what does that compare to previous months?
We had been
That's up, right?
That is up. It's been pretty more consistent the last 2 months, but prior to that it had been up and down. Mm-hmm.
Nice job, Josh. I mean, that's what it's really about, right? Is just the more staffing that you have, that you're able to cover shifts. Is there anything else that you would want to say about the staffing piece?
Just say we got for November, 85, Brenda's got 87. I figured out 85% of the shifts were covered. With all the new employees that have been riding, we were over 100% of the shifts covered. So
That's having a positive result on the call volume. I can't speak for Josh, but I would assume that that has to do with that.
Sure. Got kind of an odd question for you. So the build in October, what we build out, of those billed, how much is from the previous month? Like, what is that lag time?
Well, the calls billed are all for October calls that were taken.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
That does not lag. Where you'll see lagging is when you go to the revenue and expenditure report, the adjustments and the write-offs for October, the 130,832. That is lagged.
Gotcha.
And that takes a little bit a while. So we
Sure, that makes sense.
periodically, once a quarter, we will request from the billing company a report where it actually matches the revenue for October with the payments when they come in, no matter when they come in, if they're the next month or 6 months down the road. So we can see those trends.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda. And thanks for the staffing, Josh. Discussion and possible action on RFP by the City of Hudson for exploration and contracting our services in part or in whole. Just as an update, so November 29th was the deadline to receive proposals in response to the RFP, and we received 4 proposals total. I should say 4 entities total. One from Lakeview, one from Lakes Regions, one from North Memorial Hospital, and then one from St. Croix EMS. Those are the ones that we received. We are looking at doing interviews on December 13th from a window of 12 to 6 p.m. We're trying to figure out a way of what order should we take these proposals, and the most arbitrary way that we thought was in the order that they were received. So we'll take these interviews approximately 90 minutes each, and we're looking for whatever that presentation by the entity is, be it 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but then a good round of question and answers. Stan and Suzanne, I know that Rich reached out to you last night, Stan, about that date. Does that work for you?
Oh, I've had that penciled in for a month.
Perfect, perfect. And then Suzanne, I think that Rich reached out to Dan, and it sounded like Dan wanted to participate in it on the 13th, so he is locked in on that date. You're obviously more than welcome. I mean, all these interviews will be public, so you're more than welcome to be there. And I would urge any kind of questions that you may have to be asked to get those to Dan, obviously, or myself. So sort of walking into that process, we are also asking our fire chief and chief of police sort of to come up with any kind of questions about an entity taking over St. Croix EMS or whatever. What kind of questions would they have as it relates to public safety and in their purview, if that makes sense. Any other questions about?
Would that be held here in this room, or?
Yes, it'll be held here. Yep, like I said, from 12 noon to 6, and I really foresee at the end of that session sort of a discussion around it. It's going to be, just so you guys know, from a council end, it'll be listed as a possible action, but I don't see any decisions necessarily being made that day. Obviously, this affects the public. It affects our constituents. So we wouldn't be taking any action per se that evening. But I think it's valid to have a discussion that evening. Yeah.
Can you clarify again who will actually be doing or leading the interviews?
So the interviews, it will be the entire council of the city of Hudson. It'll also be a member from a village of North Hudson and a member of town of Troy. Yep. And again, Tim, you're not interested, right?
I would hope that when you're done, you have a review with Brenda to make sure that the financial analysis
that is one thing that I missed too, that we are
have her go over that with the council to make sure that you're going
so in addition to the fire chief, in addition to the chief of police, it is Brenda, it is Devin.
She's really important.
Mm-hmm. She is important.
So when would the city council be meeting on this? When's the next city council meeting after that?
It is on the 17th. On the 17th.
And
so that following Monday.
Anticipate taking it up at that time? Or, well, you can't really say. Or
TBD. I mean, this is obviously a big process, right? I don't see any quick decisions being made unless it's an obvious decision. If 3 of the people bow out or 3 of the entities bow out, I mean, there's only one option. But beyond that, I mean, I think it's going to be, similar to when Lakeview approached us with a contract last year where we had a public hearing and went through that entire process. That's what that process is going to look like. I don't see any quick decisions, no. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I think from your guys' end, I mean, you would probably, whatever decisions that you make, I mean, we want to hear what your thoughts are, obviously. But at the end of the day, it would probably be your board that would then have to vote, separate boards, on what you would want to do, contract-wise. Does that make sense?
I
Looking-
don't know. I mean, our board voted to get out of the contracts and stuff, but we said, since we weren't allowed to be released early, you know, I said, we'll listen to the deal, but, you know, I'll talk to the board. We got a board meeting tonight, and I'll bring it up about, see what kind of direction they want me to go. But yeah, I assume that since we voted to get out, this is to say, hey, this will be as good a deal, you know, we can maybe request to stay back in, something like that, but
Right.
see what they look like.
And I guess what I'm saying, Stan, is, well, let's back up for a second. I do want to make a point of clarification. The City of Hudson is not denying your request. The City of
Well,
Hudson
they just
is
haven't made a decision on it.
correct, and we're asking, just so you know, what was voted on, or not voted on, the statement that was made last night, if you want to take a look, is that we are not saying yes, we are not saying no, we are just asking for an extension of that time as we go through this process.
Okay.
So,
Well, that's,
and that date, I believe we put out there is March 31st, 2019.
okay, see that, I mean, it's nice to let us know that and stuff, so.
Yep.
No, we'll give it a shot. I mean, we've
Right.
said we've supported Hudson EMS and stuff, and, you know, and when we said, you know, we had that other option to, you know, 50/50 on the run calls and per capita, but, you know, and I don't think this would have come up then, so, yeah, no, we'll give it a shot.
Great, great.
Does that same position apply to the town of Troy? In terms of, I know you'd both asked to be let out early, but the city said basically that you need some more time to.
Troy is a little bit different.
Okay.
We asked to be let out, but at the end of the 5-year contract.
Okay,
They had not put a request in to leave early.
got it. I just want to make sure I'm clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I got a question. Because you've seen the proposals. All this discussion up to this point was running the service. But yet when you said similar to the last process for Lakeview, is there any discussion about selling the service? You know, that's what it was last time, was they were literally going to take over the equipment and everything. Or is this strictly just operating the service?
It's a little bit of both,
Like
right?
a
I mean,
manager, it could be either way.
yeah, I mean,
Okay, I was just curious.
right. So if you take a look at the proposal, any sort of questions that any entity would have in terms of equipment and all that kind of stuff kind of came through.
Okay,
I mean,
it did.
it's
Okay.
up for discussion, yes. A
Okay.
decision, no.
No, because in that process would lengthen the decision dramatically, I would think. You know what I
Correct.
mean? Because you got to get in all of
Correct.
that contract information to be able to make a decision.
Right. And, you know, in terms of the process too, I mean, just to be completely transparent about it, is I think the decision first and foremost is going down an avenue. It's not, I don't think it's a turnaround, yep, this is it and that's what it's going to be.
Oh, okay.
You know, I think it still is, you know, whatever that is, it's still a negotiable
Okay.
piece. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, I guess all in all, what I'm trying to say is it's going to be a process. It's going to take a little bit of time.
Maybe I'm just a little fuzzy on turn. I know we talked about this before. It's kind of a chicken and egg scenario. So if any of the municipalities were to vote to do something different, it's really going to be somewhat contingent on the city's response in order to, are they going to honor, are you going to keep them to the end of the commitment of their contract, or because that's going to influence their decision to leave? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
All right, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying if the city of Hudson, let's say we see all the proposals and the city of Hudson goes with a proposal set forth by St. Croix EMS, then what would happen if town of Troy said, we want a contract with one of these other interviewees? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying like hypotheticals, different scenarios. Let's say Village of North Hudson says, you know what, we think we want to go with some other provider. But then the city says, yeah, but we're not going to let you out of the contract early.
Again, that kind of goes back to the
Hold on.
Village of North Hudson already putting in a request and then us asking for an extension because we need to see what this process looks like. Does that make sense?
It does, but they're still intertwined, and,
Absolutely.
you know.
Yep. I mean,
would think that would influence
his
your
request,
decision.
Village of North Hudson's request is still on the table. It's just we want to see what that process looks like. And if they decide to go with a different operation than what we decide, obviously that does affect what that other proposal is. You're right, it is intertwined.
I'm just thinking if I were in the shoes of Stan or Suzanne, I'd want to know what the city's feelings are in terms of letting out of the contract in order to influence the decision they're going to make, right?
Yeah, well, if they're giving us until, the end of March to look at this, to give it a fair review, I mean, I'm okay with that,
Right.
and I'm very interested to see what the proposals are.
And I'd,
Absolutely, I mean,
That's the big thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there could be something that we haven't even, thought about or whatever. It's like, well, that's a good idea, or that should be good service. I mean, that's what we want, quality service, affordable costs, and response times that are, the industry standard.
I also want to say, too, that I really don't see this process as, hey, Village of North Hudson is coming in and Town of Troy is coming into these interviews, and wow, everybody just does these interviews and then we go do our own thing. I see this as being a constant conversation because I truly want partnership within this process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
So their sentiments, we're weighing that as a decision.
got it.
You need to be commended for that. You need to be commended for that. That wasn't the way it was done the last time.
I also wasn't in this chair,
I know,
and I'm telling you right now that I am committed.
and that's good. I said you're commended for that.
Oh, gotcha.
You know what I mean? Because last time the partners weren't really much of a decision part of it at all.
I realize this. And that's
nice
know.
of you, the city, to do that.
well, yeah, I think it's too important, right? Our relationship with the Village of North Hudson and the Town of Troy.
And my other question is too, I know that, so the individual municipalities will be voting on what they want to do, but if that's not synchronized in a certain way, it could get really messy.
Correct.
So that I would say there needs to be some discussion, maybe an agreement, if you will, on what a timeframe should be. Because if one municipality is going to wait 6 months and another one's going to do it in January, it's going to get the synchronization of that and the timing of knowing if they can get out of the contract they're in. Those two are critical pieces because your decisions may be contingent on both of those.
Valid point.
Fair point. Fair point. And I'm taking notes because, again, it's, not only the questions of the interviewees, but also our discussion after the fact. What does that look like? Because we can all sit down. I mean, obviously, I'm just one representative on city council,
Yeah,
right?
I get it.
But that evening, we'll have everybody there, right? And let's have those conversations. Because you're right. It's timing is everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Any other questions? I don't think we need a motion or anything like that on this.
Once all interviews and stuff are done and you guys pick whatever service you guys are gonna go with, what's the anticipated start date?
I think we need to define that as a group, and I think that's in part with that interview process. It's not an overnight thing. I mean, unless we are going with one of your proposals that can be put in place quicker. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Can't answer that at this point. But to your question, I just want to clarify. So what you're saying is when the decision has been made, how quick is that turnaround?
Yeah, what you guys are thinking, is there gonna be a 2020 start date, or middle of 2019, or?
Yes, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. But to your point, that's yet another thing to clarify as we go through this process, sooner rather than later.
That begs the question of when and how do the staff get notified? That's where you're really coming from, isn't it, Josh?
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the lead to his question, which is valid, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would say that prior to the council making an announcement out to the general public, you maybe ought to have the staff come in and report to them where you're going.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So that they don't.
I'm hearing you. Yeah.
Newspaper.
Right. Yeah, and I just want to reiterate again that the process that we're about to go under, it's my passion that this process be an open process with the community, with our staff, with, you know. All right. Any other questions on that piece? Discussion and possible action on non-renewal of ambulance contracts. So I don't think there's anything new from the town of Troy on any pieces. That leaves the village of North Hudson with, and we kind of covered that in the previous.
We kind of, yeah, that pretty much covered in
right.
the previous item.
Yeah, and just looking for that extension to March 31st as we go through this process of, I should state, 2019.
No,
I just wrote that down and that's a good point.
What year? Right?
no, I wrote it in pencil because it's ultimately still up to the board. You guys could say, well, we need 3 more months, or we need 6 more months, or the end of 2019. You know, I mean, whatever it is, I mean, we're under contract, and we will not, you know, I mean, breach the contract.
Gotcha.
We'll let you guys do that.
Wow. I appreciate, though, that you're staying in.
You get an
I
opportunity.
really
No,
do.
that's, we're under contract. That's what we have to do.
Right on. Any other questions on that piece? All right. Okay, update on RFP for billing company. Brenda, how we doing?
The city attorney is still reviewing it. I talked to her last night, and she did state that she is still reviewing it, so no update. That is the update, so.
That is the update.
That is
Is there any line of sight to when?
No.
I mean, what is she reviewing specifically?
There were some language changes that they proposed. There was some language that they removed, and so when I sent it back to the billing company, I put some of that language back in, and so she's reviewing that now.
Got it.
That's where we're at.
Did she give you a sense of when she'd be done with her?
She did not. However, the billing company is billing us at the new rate,
Okay,
which is the lower rate, so that's a good thing.
that is a good thing. Thank you.
If there's a change, how long does that change, that billing process? Because you've got stuff that has that date going out. Would we continue to use that billing during that period, I think? I would assume, wouldn't we?
For the bills that, because I've gone through this before, not through this process, but we've changed billing companies before where I've been at, and you leave the bills that they billed out at the old billing company, and you just start billing at the new billing company, and so the old billing company would continue to process that, and that'd be about a 9-month process before they hit either a payment bucket or a collection bucket.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on? All right. Doesn't need an action item, I don't think there.
No.
So thank you, Brenda.
Yep.
Discussion and possible action. I'm sorry, I missed. update on 2019 budget. Brenda?
So the Hudson City Council did approve that at their November meeting, and so it is, as you saw, proposed in October. I am happy to email you out copies of that budget, so you have that. So I'll do that. I'll put that on my list. So there were no changes.
$17 per capita.
Yes, $17 per capita.
Okay, and we don't need an action on that?
No
obviously,
action
since
needed.
nothing changed, right? Okay. Now, discussion and possible action on interfacility transport call-down list. Tom?
Well, I think it was important. I think we went through what is the call-down list. That's something we had requested, and I think we're all familiar with that. I think I just want to go on record, too, as saying, and we get it. I mean, the facility transports, I mean, that's a big part of the business, whoever gets the RP business. So, but I think it merits mentioning. So Hudson Hospital, I mean, we'll do what's in the best interest of the patients in our community. That's what we're about. That will not change. That's who we have been. That's who we will remain to be. So we'll do what's in the best interest of the patients in the community. It also going to kind of depend on how it shakes out with who gets the business and those type of things. So I'm not making any declarations. I'm not making any assumptions at this point. I think we just need to see how the RFPs shake out, and from there we can have more discussion. So.
Okay, so you're not prepared to say whatever we choose to go with, the call-down list stays the
I think it'd
same,
be
right? I
very-
mean, it's still conversation, right?
Yeah, I think it'd be very premature to make
Yes.
any declarations like that. We need to see what happens in terms of the respondents, and
Right.
from there we'll have more discussion. We want to be collaborative in this process, and again, we want to do what's in the best interest of the community. So we're not making any declarations whatsoever.
Great,
So
okay,
it needs to be a collaborative process. So
agreed. Thank you.
We'll welcome any thoughts or ideas from those on the commission. I just felt it was important to, it's kind of an elephant in the room, if you will, in terms of the interfacility transport, because we all know that they're could be coming from the hospital.
Right.
And
And it's really directed by, to some degree, your docs, right? I mean,
absolutely. Yeah.
the patient need, how close the ambulances are within, is that right?
Well, the only reason that this is a big concern is because when Town of Hudson was in their talks, you know, Lakeview stated that, you know, in order for them to, for Town of Hudson to be profitable for them, they're going to have to take all the transfers out of Hudson.
I don't think that was a statement, Josh. The statement
That was a statement that was made by you, though.
No, it was not. The statement was if Lakes Region, a competitor, took over St. Croix EMS, they would not allow the competitor to haul their patients away from their hospital. That's what I said. Yes, I did.
You made both statements. I mean, we can review.
Well, yeah, and it, that was the direction the council was seeming to go, is what, and I didn't even know that. That was news to me from John, never from the council. Okay?
Okay.
You know, because I didn't know you were having those discussions with Lakes Regions. I didn't. That was the ad hoc committee.
So with Lakeview coming into the town of Hudson, I mean, that is a good point. Is interfacility, does that affect this call-down list as it exists now?
John said at our meeting, when we discussed the contract, that would be a determining factor later on. Same thing he's saying.
As of right now, the interfacility transport call list, as we call St. Croix EMS, should always be called first. We follow that very prescriptively. We don't deviate from that. But I think it's going to merit some discussion, you know, depending upon how it shakes out with
The proposals.
the
right?
proposals. Because there's nothing legal, there's nothing legal or technical that I think that I'm aware of that says that we have to even follow. This is something we agreed to.
Correct.
And it's something that we do in the best interest of the community. So we'll just have to see what happens, I guess.
So for the time being, we stick with this call list?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Perfect.
We're not changing
Perfect.
anything until we get all the responses back, so,
Great. Thank you, Tom.
yeah.
Appreciate it. Any other questions, thoughts? I guess that doesn't need a possible action, right? Or it doesn't need an action. Operations Supervisors Report.
A lot of it was staffing and staffing trucks, which we already covered. So October total calls were 204, and it was the 100 and
44.
whatever Brenda said, 140 something for actual billable. November is down a little bit. I think we ended right around 150 calls for the month. Did 30 transfers in the month of November. We only gave up 3. Reason we 30 in November. The reason we gave up 3 is because trucks were out busy doing other ones. So wasn't a
staffing issue?
It was not a staffing issue. So.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, all the new medics are cleared. They're all picking up. They all have a schedule now. They're all working. We have 1 EMT left that's still finishing up his training. We're going to do more interviews this week, Thursday. I think we're going to start. We have another 12 people we're interviewing, so 4 medics and 8 EMTs. So.
With where you are now, how many down are we?
We're down
a medic / chief, or
down a medic,
and that's mostly the chief position, or
it's kind of like it's partially due with the new schedule. The new schedule is built off a 6 medic rotation, so we try to leave that 1 medic spot open to accommodate the casual medics that we have here.
Okay.
So just need to beef up our casual medics a little bit, and we'll be okay.
Gotcha. And EMTs, you feel good about staffing level there?
Yeah.
Could always use
Trying
more.
to get a few more so people don't feel compelled to work,
Right. How has it been going ever since that directive came down from medical direction?
It's fine. It's eased up a little bit. I think we had 2 or 3 last pay period that hit the boundary a little bit, but a medical director stated that was okay as long as that they were in a training role on the truck and not in a direct patient care role.
Gotcha.
So he flexed the rule for that. So
Gotcha.
now that everybody's fallen off of the training role, now you should see that go down.
Gotcha.
Hopefully none.
So you proactively reached out to the medical director in that case?
Yeah, I talked
just
to
to make sure?
Yeah, I talk to him all the time. So
great. Thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Josh. Really appreciate it. Future agenda items. I don't know that I have anything outside of, obviously we want billing company update next time.
Read the first 5 on this one.
Yeah, right. I guess my next question really is tied with the next meeting. Like, when do we want to, and this is possibly Tim's last meeting, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
If we don't meet in December again?
Meet in December, that's correct.
I'm thinking that as we go through this process, to make sure that we are truly on the same page as we go through this process, it might be worth us meeting at least monthly. You know what I mean? As we have these discussions as a group, and then coming back, I still want to hear your input as we go through that process. Does that make sense?
Okay.
As you go back and discuss things with your boards about these interviews, et cetera, just that constant contact, if you will. So I'm wondering if we want to do something maybe in the second week of January. Would you guys be open to that?
Well, then we got New Year's falls on the first Tuesday, I think. So we won't meet until the following week.
The week of the 7th?
Yes, sounds right.
When do you meet? What days of the week?
First Tuesday of the month.
So you don't meet on the 8th then?
Is that?
The 8th is the first.
The 8th is the
Tuesday.
first Tuesday after the
Because the
first.
1st is the Tuesday. First Tuesday.
Yeah, yeah, no, we won't go on the first. It'll be on the 8th. So there's no sense in us meeting before, before then.
So that'll be the first meeting that you have as a board after the interviews.
RFP discussion on the 13th.
Got it. How about Town of Troy? When is your,
The 8th would be all right.
but when is your meeting?
Our town board meeting is on the 10th.
It's on the 10th. So I'm wondering, would it make sense to do it before your board meetings or after?
If you're looking for a vote, you want to do it before their meeting.
Well, is there going to be any decisions made before then?
I,
There's no decisions. If it's still up in the air, then there's no sense in meeting, I don't
That's
think.
probably true. That's
You know what I
probably
mean?
true.
why don't we set, could we set Tuesday the 8th in the morning as the meeting?
I think it's wise to have it before our board meetings. When is your board meeting?
This would be at
The evening of the 8th,
the
right?
8th.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if that's,
Let's, we want to make it on the 7th. So that,
It makes
What?
sense so that you're in your board meetings, you're discussing what the
I'm okay.
commission is
Right.
feeling. That makes sense. That does.
But as we discussed, there's going to be prerequisite information you will likely need.
right.
Right.
Decisions.
No, absolutely. If there's,
Meeting
if
unless you
if
have
there
that
is,
information.
if there is a
It makes-
There is a new
decision
decision,
made,
right?
you know, or that's going to be made that the board needs to make that night, I would definitely have the meeting in the morning. And that, I got no problem with that.
Gotcha. To your point, maybe on the 7th?
yeah, well, you know, our meetings are at night, so
Gotcha.
the 8th would be all right.
Which
Your
works
meeting's on the
better
8th.
on everybody's schedule, 7th or 8th?
8th is better for me in the morning.
Sounds good.
I've got 2 different meetings on Monday, so.
Gotcha. January 8th, 7:30, same time. This time works out for everybody, right?
We'll make it work.
Thanks, Tom.
That's sort of.
Anything else?
Before you adjourn, I want to thank everyone. I've really enjoyed this process. I've enjoyed working with St. Croix EMS a lot over the years. I really have. It's been a really wonderful service. Sorry that it's caused this change to occur, but I have, Josh. I really have. Seriously.
We appreciate all the town of Hudson's done over the past few years as far as you sitting as chair of the EMS commission and helping move the service forward to where we are today. So
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
And thank you for all your wealth of information. And I would like to ask you, you know, as I'm sitting in the chair that you sat in before me,
Yes.
do you mind if I seek out you for information?
You're more than welcome. to.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim.
Yes,
And thanks for your service.
you're welcome. Thank you.
And with that, I'll entertain a motion.
To adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Oh.